Hello, everybody. Welcome to my lunchtime chat that is sponsored by our Black Hair Matters. And today we are discussing 3 myths about scalp care, and is the scalp care the defining factor for healthy hair? And so I decided on this topic because I was reading and there was an article on Elemental Medium, and the title of it was "Is Scalp the New Skin? The Truth About the New Class of Hair Care Products." And so I thought it'd be a great idea to mention it, and I posted it in the group. So if you're not a member, be sure you do that. But I want to talk about what research has revealed about the best ingredient for moisturizing the scalp, how to treat your scalp for the best outcomes, and what you need to consider before purchasing products. So hello, everybody. If you can put your name in the chat, that would be awesome. I'd love to see you. And so I want to take some time, just in case you don't know who I am. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter, and this is a live online broadcast platform dedicated to elevating the Black hair care industry and empowering consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. So I want to see who is all out there. Thank you for joining, Taria. Hey, how you doing? It's Roslyn. Let me know where you're from, and let me know if you are a consumer. Well, actually, let's start with hair professionals. So put a number 1 if you are a hair professional. If you are a consumer, put in a number 2. And if you are a researcher or scientist like myself, put the number 3 in the chat. Would love to see you and know who you are. Yeah, so as I said, I wanted to talk about just some of the things that I've been reading about. And I just want to remind people, if you have any questions, be sure to put it in the chat, even if it's not a part of the topic, because that lets me know that I am providing content that is relevant to you. And so I see, I thought I saw another name here pop up. Oh, Andrea, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. And Taria, I see that there are some people who are identified as Facebook user. So if you can put your name in, that would be awesome. And it changes depending upon which platform you join from. So I know sometimes you're not really able to put it in, but it'd be great if I can know who you are. And so also when you join, if you could share the broadcast, that would be great. You can, if you invite 5 people. I think what you'll learn today is a little different than what you've heard before, so don't be stingy. Before I get started, I just want to make sure that you are an audience who can really appreciate this. So if you are frustrated with the lack of information available when it comes to caring for your hair, or you have wasted lots of money, time, and resources just trying to figure things out on your own, you are definitely in the right place. And that is why we've created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. And so one last thing before we get started, I have put together a very valuable resource. It is 3 mistakes to avoid when caring for your curly hair. So if you have not received it right now, you can get it. And it is a link that is included here on the screen. And if you have any concerns, you can meet with my team by scheduling a 15-minute consultation by going to bit.ly/OBHM consult, and we can schedule an appointment for you. So thank you very much. Let's see, Sheila. Hi, Sheila. Thanks for joining. Alyssa, also a consumer. Great. Thank you for joining. And let's see, I think that is it right now, even though I see more on here. So welcome, everybody. Okay, without further ado, we are going to get started and into the nitty-gritty. So, as I mentioned, I was doing some reading, right? And it was basically saying, is scalp the new skin? Because everybody has all of these protocols that you're supposed to be doing to keep a healthy scalp that will, of course, lead to healthy hair. And so they say, like, we must become master gardeners for our scalps. And the analogy really does seem like it would make sense, right? Because if you take care of your scalp, what grows from it should be healthy as well. And it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the truth is, unless you have a scalp condition like severe flaking or hair loss, or if you experience plain and or inflammation, you really don't need to self-treat. So as long as you use products that you cleanse from your scalp, that really is what is needed and the best thing. So the myth number one is if your scalp is the soil, then you must tend to it to make sure that your hair is healthy. And that's not always true unless you have a problem, right? And so I mentioned that it's also important for you to be able to cleanse your scalp. But there are a lot of different gadgets out there and a lot of different methods that you read out there that suggest that you have to do more than just the typical use a shampoo, use your fingertips to scrub your scalp, and they want you to do more and buy more, right? So hi, Bessie, thanks for joining. And so we have like different brushes that they have out, so scalp brushes to really, cleanse the scalp. They have different scrubs. You have like salt scrubs or sugar scrubs, and you can actually self-induce a whole lot more damage and create a problem where there originally was not one. So you want to make sure that you keep things into perspective, because I know a couple of times where I've experimented myself with a brush. Personally, with the curl degree that I have with my hair, which is 4C hair, I get more tangles than anything else. And I know you're not supposed to, scrub, really hard. But when I've even, just gently gotten around the areas where I do have some flaking, and we'll talk a little bit about flaking a little later. But when I've gone into the areas where I wanted to make sure I lifted up the flakes, I could see that I still had a little bit more tangling. So just be really careful with that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about the scrubs, because I mentioned salt and sugar. Keep in mind that if you have a salt scrub and if you use artificial color, like I use permanent color, at least my ends are permanently colored, those salt scrubs can actually fade your color faster. So you want to make sure that you are careful about that. But also with the scrub, especially if you have thin fibers, so the diameter of my individual hair strands are really thin. And so I have a higher propensity to actually like nick it or, remove the cuticle layer of the hair, which is that protective layer of the hair shaft. So you want to make sure that if you have any type of, debris or, that, can't even think of the word, where it's like, I can't even think of the word, but when you actually have the granules there, that you can actually disrupt the cuticle layer of your hair, which protects it. So be very careful with that. Okay, and so, Taria says there is so much out there that is confusing. Yeah, it is. And yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how confusing it can be and why. So if you have any specific questions, be sure to put it in the chat. Now, the other thing I want to talk about when it comes to cleansing, a lot of people have like different treatments that you put on the scalp before you even cleanse it. And the thing is, sometimes like an ingredient like salicylic acid, which is known to help with flaking, it actually helps to lift it up a little bit and to release it from the hair strands. So sometimes that is good if you have that particular problem. So that is an ingredient that you won't have too many problems with when it comes to one, interacting with like color, or two, you doing more damage to your hair with having those granules in there that could actually, cause friction against your hair strands and actually cause it to break. Okay, and then I also want to talk a little bit about sensorial ingredients such as peppermint or tea tree oil. And then I think everybody has heard of sea breeze, right? You put sea breeze on your scalp and it feels cooling and it feels really good. You have that tingling sensation. And so that's all well and good when it comes to, kind of helping you to relax, especially if you have someone else doing your hair. And, you can sit back with your head in the shampoo bowl and just experience, just the nice sensations. But sometimes that's really pretty much what it is a sensation. So you hear a lot of people say, oh, if you're having problems with your scalp, that you should use peppermint or tea tree oil, and those are not necessarily effective. There aren't any data out there to show that those ingredients are effective. However, because we can feel it, we think that it's doing something, so it really misleads us. So be very careful about that. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about is when I said if you have a problem with your scalp, then you actually can have certain treatments that you can do. And so I've talked about this in the past, but one of the things that's really important is for you to know what professional you can go to for help. So in the past, we've talked about, of course, dermatologists and trying to find a dermatologist who is sensitive or sensitive to our skin, our hair type. I mean, it's sometimes hard to find. And so, asking people who they've gone to, if you want to set up a consultation, depending upon where you are, I may be able to recommend someone. So just knowing a good dermatologist, but also if you can't find a dermatologist, you have hair professionals such as trichologists. And a trichologist is usually a hair practitioner, like a cosmetologist, who has gotten more education about diseases of the hair and scalp. And a lot of times, if you find the right one, because all of them aren't necessarily qualified to really be beneficial to you, but if you find the right one, like someone on my team, then you can also have assistance with that. And so a lot of times, if you have a scalp condition such as dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis, which is a fancy word for a more extreme version of dandruff, and it's kind of debatable. Some people feel that dandruff and seborrheic dermatitis is one of the same, and some people say, oh no, they're different. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between dandruff and seborrheic dermatitis. And so dandruff, it presents itself pretty much the same way. So if you have dandruff, then you have a lot of times, of course, flaking, but not the severity of flaking. It's just a little bit of flakes here and there throughout your scalp. And then you also can experience itching as well. And so when you have seborrheic dermatitis, then that is a little bit more severe. Sometimes it presents itself as being sheets on the scalp, and you can actually take like a fine-tooth comb and kind of lift it up. It's actually a nuisance, and I can talk about it because I experienced it ever since high school. And so I have had it under control for a number of years now, but I had to go to a dermatologist to actually get the right medication that would help me out as a patient who just had a lot of bad experiences with trying to use over-the-counter medications. They just weren't effective for me. And I tried them all, right? You have tar, you have, what was one of the other ingredients that they use? You have tar and I'll talk about that a little later. But there are different ingredients for different conditions for or different active ingredients that will help with the same conditions such as dandruff. And because we're all different, we don't always respond for those to those over-the-counter ingredients. So you have to be extremely patient, and you have to do a lot of trial and error, unfortunately. But if none of the over-the-counter works, then you do have to see a dermatologist. And so Taria says, thank you for the clarification. Would classify it all as dandruff. No, I understand that. But here's something really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Taria, because while we think it presents itself the same, when a lot of times when people or professionals say that it's seborrheic dermatitis, is because there's additional inflammation that you can see. And so you have redness, and sometimes it even gets to the point where it starts to bleed, which is like really annoying. So you want to make sure you get that taken care of. But there are some researchers at Procter and Gamble, and they, back in the, I'll say 2004, 2005, they had some research that they presented that really showed the mechanism or proposed mechanism for seborrheic dermatitis. And what they showed is not only do you have inflammation, but you also have a difference in the structure of the different layers of the skin. The structure changes when you have seborrheic dermatitis and dandruff compared to normal skin. And what's really interesting is it presents itself all over the scalp as opposed to just the area where you're experiencing the flaking. So, you know, it's really something that disrupts the normal appearance of the skin. And so they showed that, and it's, you know, really interesting. The other thing is, if you don't realize where it comes from, so I already know that I have a overproductive sebaceous gland, or my sebaceous glands are overproductive, meaning that the sebum or the natural oils that are generated from the scalp of the hair, they are overproduced. And so that feeds the Malassezia yeast that feeds upon it. But there's also an individual we are more susceptible. Some individuals are more susceptible to experiencing that. So even though we all have sebum, we all have Malassezia yeast, we don't always respond to it the same. And so for those of us like me who are more susceptible to it, then unfortunately I have to have the medication that needs to be subscribed. And it's not cheap, but I'm able to get it under control, which is awesome. So Taria, you say yes. It is really interesting when you actually start digging into the literature to really try to understand exactly what's going on and why we respond the way we do. And the truth of the matter is, we don't know why yet. We as researchers really need to understand that more. And I'm going to get a little bit more into detail about some of the other things that are going on that we're learning as researchers that can also impact what's going on with the scalp. So we have someone that say, please, can we have an explanation of the differences between scalp treatment and hair treatments? Yeah, so scalp treatments are just that. Like, for example, if you have to go to a dermatologist and they give you a treatment that is for your scalp, a lot of times, in order to get the product on the scalp, they actually give you like a shampoo, which is for the hair, or it's marketed for the hair. And so really what they're trying to do is to have you have a product that will allow you to get whatever active ingredient there is in the product to your scalp. And so a scalp treatment is something that's going to benefit the scalp, and a hair treatment is something that's going to benefit the hair. And you would say, okay, well, maybe it's one of the same, because if you talk about shampoos, then you would say, oh, I'm going to use this shampoo. It's really for my scalp, but it should benefit my hair as well. And that is not always true, unfortunately. A lot of times, or at least my experience, when I went earlier on and the dermatologist was only really concerned about the effect of the product on my scalp, it really left my hair feeling, you know, brittle. So if you get a lot of the subscribed products and it's in the form of a shampoo, a lot of times it will feel drying. And so you need to try your best to apply it to the scalp and avoid the hair strands as much as possible. But then you need to follow it up with something that is more softening to the hair. So you want to keep that in mind, especially for those of us with curlier hair types. And so, hey, Deirdre, thank you for coming, Deirdre Keller. And then thank you for that. Sometimes it's so hard to explain. Okay, yeah. But you are going to really have to follow up that scalp treatment with a hair treatment. And when I say hair treatment, I'm just talking about a product that is really conducive to making sure that the hair will behave and feel the way you want it to. And so Dee Dee or Deidre is a hair practitioner and one of my stylists that I go to when I can make it to the city. And so I highly recommend her, especially for those natural styles. She does beautiful hair. All right, so talked about that, but I also want to talk about the myth of the marketing buzz and that ingredients really do make a difference, because not all ingredients make a difference. And I was talking about the peppermint oil and the tea tree, you know, that really is a sensorial phenomenon, and it doesn't always make the difference in terms of solving the problem. It may be temporary, because if you're experiencing some itching and then you feel that coolness, or sometimes it's even a warm sensation, it feels really good, but it doesn't mean that it's effective. Kimberly Pecco, thank you so much about saying it's good information. And all right, let me know if you have any other questions that's related to this or not related to it, because I definitely want to include it. But talking about the marketing buzz, I want to talk about, you know, the claims about things being scalp balancing or something being anti-aging, even for the scalp, which is why they say, you know, is the scalp the new skin? Because they're talking about even anti-aging when it comes to different hair products that are supposed to be good for the scalp. And so we really don't have good clinical data to support that things are more balanced or things are anti-aging. And if they claim that it does that, then it's up to us to ask, show me the data, and showing how that is and explaining why it is. Because I think that in this day and age of getting all this information, we have enough brain power. We are smart enough to be able to digest a lot of the information when it comes to showing that it really is effective at doing whatever it claims to do. Great information, thank you, awesome. And so you want to make sure that we hold the manufacturers accountable in educating us. Is extremely important. Now, the other thing that I see, or, you know, ingredients like hyaluronic acid is something that they're toting for, oh, it's going to add moisture to the hair, and it's something that actually came from skincare, and so now they're trying to put it in hair care as well and put it on the scalp. But to be honest with you, unless your scalp presents itself as being dry, and that means even outside of you oiling your scalp or putting, you know, like some type of grease or oil on your scalp, I'm not a proponent of anyone oiling their scalp per se, because the sebum usually is enough. I think that is something that people are used to, because I'm one, and when I was growing up, we always oiled our scalps. But when I actually became educated in the area of cosmetic science, I learned that it's not necessarily beneficial. And for me, with someone with seborrheic dermatitis, unfortunately, it made it worse. And that's not good. So I would just challenge someone who is used to oiling their scalp or putting some type of petrolatum-based product on the scalp. Just try like one period between washings. Just try and see if your hair is okay. Now, when it comes to moisture, glycerin is the ingredient that is definitely the ingredient of choice when it comes to containing moisture or holding in water inside of any medium. So whether it's your scalp, whether it's your hair, or whether it's your skin in general, glycerin is awesome. And it's 1,000 times cheaper than hyaluronic acid. 1,000 times cheaper. So, I mean, it's effective and it's cheaper. So those of you who like to, you know, think of ingredients that you'd like to have in your products, and someone tries to sell you on, you know, a higher end, more expensive one, glycerin will do just fine. So we have, thank you for the clarification. I on the scalp. Are there natural conditioners truly effective? Hair conditioners that are effective. Speaking of avocado, olive oil, and the honey, I am so glad you said that. I have a post-it note around here somewhere because I was reading an article and they were talking about some particular technique, but they were talking about the exact ingredients that you are talking about. So you said avocado, they were talking about the use of avocado, like smashing it up and putting it into some conditioner, putting olive oil, and then honey is a big one. So are they effective? It depends on what you mean by effective, because when I condition my hair, what I would judge the effectiveness on is how it makes my hair more manageable. So that would be my definition. And so what I have found personally is honey. I have not used avocado, but I've definitely used olive oil. So for olive oil and honey, it does not necessarily make my hair more manageable. However, I have to say that a lot of the oils can soften the hair to the point where it can make the hair more manageable. But for olive oil, for me, using it in the dry state, at least, I know that it doesn't soften it the way that like I would want it to be softened to make it more manageable. So when you say coat, so can you come back and let me know about what attribute for the conditioner you're looking for? A lot of people say, oh, I use a conditioner to moisturize. And so I try to stay away from that as a scientist, as a way to describe what the hair is doing, because we as scientists know that even though the hair may have more moisture in it or water content, it doesn't mean that it's actually more pliable or soft, which is what we're looking for when we say usually the word moisturize. So, so you're saying, okay, you constantly get clients with not only hair and scalp issues, okay, understand issues go along with age, yes. Age alone shows hair growth, but they want to buy products that are advertised by women in their 20s and 30s whose hair grow back fully and believe that it will grow their own hair as well. Oh, yeah, I am not shocked that you are bombarded by that, Dee Dee. There are so many marketing, like different influencers. That's what I'm trying to look for. So there are so many influencers out there who are trying to give hope and also trying to sell products. And unfortunately, there is no proof that any of the things that you named, such as avocado, olive oil, and honey, really lead to hair growth unless they are lubricating the hair strands to make it more manageable so that it breaks less. That's the only thing that would be beneficial in terms of olive oil. But what I have found personally is that it's temporary, and yeah, and adding for me olive oil repeatedly just leaves my hair in a greasy mess. So I personally don't like a lot of oils because my hair strands are fine and it doesn't take long for my hair just to go limp, and I just don't like that. So some people, depending upon the style that you have, that may work for you, but I know personally it doesn't work for me. So you say you're looking for moisture, less frizz, and more manageability. Yeah, that is what we all want, right? Less frizz and more manageability. Those products don't seem to benefit. Well, I don't know about moisture, but like I said, I try to stay away from that. So I'm just going to say soften the hair. I don't know about softening the hair when it comes to avocado and honey, but I personally have not had good experience with with honey or olive oil softening my hair to the point where it will be a good conditioner for me. But when you say less frizz, honey doesn't create less frizz, and olive oil doesn't either. Don't know about avocado oil, but I'm thinking, okay, if you think about the oils in avocado, the avocado plant, I've used avocado oil and it definitely doesn't help with frizz. A lot of the things that help with frizz, some people don't like it, are the silicones. Everyone says no cones, you know, that's the buzz now, but I love silicones for frizz control, and it's data to show that it helps with frizz control. But what it does is it decreases the time in which your hair frizzes. So while we don't want it to frizz at all, it'll buy you a little bit more time going from the car to an air conditioned place where you can also keep frizz down by going into air conditioning and keeping the relative humidity low. Let's see, find that using oils for conditioning works beautifully when the hair is wet. Oh yeah, when the hair is wet, it's awesome. I believe that there's some physics going on with that, because oil and water don't mix. And so once again, with our curlier hair, we have a tendency to need it to detangle. And so when you have that oil and water together, not only does the oil help it to slip, but the water also softens it. So you have kind of that dual effect when it's wet. Taria, you say, are you clearing up as much stuff buying all these things for the hair, and it can get expensive? You are absolutely right. Whew, I can't tell you how much money we spend on the hair just looking for the next best thing. And so I already told you, hyaluronic acid is 1,000 times more expensive. And so when they add that ingredient into the formula, it's definitely going to increase the cost, and you get less effective moisturization, if that's what you're looking for with the scalp, with the hyaluronic acid compared to glycerin. So yeah, it does get expensive, and I think we need to figure out how to make sure that we make informed decisions, but about our specificities when it comes to our own hair, because depending upon what you've used in the past, and Dee Dee's on here, so I know she can attest to this. There would be times where I would come in and I would have used something on my hair, and she would be like, what did you use? Your hair doesn't feel the way it needs to. And then sometimes it also affects the end result. So even though she's doing whatever she does with her hair, that if I would continue going to Dee Dee and she would do my hair and I wouldn't interfere with it, then my hair would feel much better. But then when I use products, then it leaves it feeling a certain way. Sometimes it takes a little time for the hair to get to be, some people like to use the word trained, but sometimes it takes a while for the hair to feel the way that a hair professional would like it to feel. And so you say you have used DIY with honey, coconut oil, and aloe vera. Yeah, a lot of people have done that. I'm curious, how did that work for you when you did your DIY? Because depending upon how much honey you're using, and the ratio of what you're using, and then how you're using it, meaning are you applying it to the hair when it's wet or when it's dry, all of that will dictate what end result you get. So I'm curious about getting more information about that. And good morning to you. Don't know, I see Facebook users. I see a lot of Facebook users on here. So if you can let me know who you are, that'd be great. Kimberly, you're laughing. Okay, and then someone else says, some products do not work like like they used to. Now, I want to talk a little bit about products not working the way that they used to, because you say can't fool your hairdresser. You're funny, Kimberly. You're absolutely right. I have learned that. I learned that a long time ago. But yeah, products don't work the way they used to, and there are a number of reasons why. A lot of people don't realize that when every year the regulations change. And when the regulations change in the industry, because people say, oh, the products aren't regulated, but they are. And especially when you consider the larger brands. So I always use the big three as an example. So the Procter & Gamble's, the Unilevers, and the L'Oreal's. When regulations change, a lot of times they have to reformulate. And when they reformulate, it's hard to find, and they have to replace an ingredient with another. It's hard to find something that is going to be as effective as what they used before, because a lot of times a lot of research and money goes into researching what works the best, right? So when they have to reformulate, a lot of people think that, oh, they're just using cheaper ingredients, and sometimes that's the case, but more often than not, it's due because of a regulatory change. And so they have to reformulate to take out whatever it is that is changing in regulations. And so that means they have to find a substitute. And a lot of times it takes time to figure out what substitute would actually be good or ideal or effective. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes they have to sacrifice the benefit that the product had before they had to reformulate. So that's just what happens in the industry. You say it worked very well. Oh, so awesome. So let me know who you are too, the one who's giving me the feedback about the conditioner and how it worked for your hair. So you're giving the breakdown of what you use. So a 3:1 ratio of coconut oil, aloe vera, and honey. Okay, I did not have to put any in my hair after it dried. Okay, so you put it on wet. It works better than your DIY with avocado. Oh, okay. Wow. So I'd be curious about that. And if you reach out to me, send me a message. I'd be curious about that because, as you know, or hopefully you know, as a researcher, I have access to instrumentation now where I can do some tests. So if you want to actually let me experiment on what you're doing on your hair, or not let me experiment, let me test to see the benefit of what you're doing with your hair, I would love that. So contact me in Messenger. All right, and then Taria says, that's great information, how regulation changes formulations. Oh, absolutely. And a lot of people don't know that. It says, it's you, Eddie. Oh, okay, Eddie, thanks for joining on the DIY. Yes, I'm glad you found something that works. You are definitely, but you know what? You wear your hair mostly up. In extensions, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious about that. So Eddie, you and I are going to talk. Okay, is there a way for us to know when regulations are changing? Interesting. So I had Jennifer Orendi on here a couple of weeks ago. And she has to be up on the regulations because she has to be aware of what's going on legally. So she was the legal expert that I had on 2 weeks ago. So if you didn't see that, make sure you go back and you review the replay. But she was awesome in giving a lot of the the different organizations that you need to be aware of to make sure that you stay compliant. And so she is someone who would be able to let you know. But if you do a Google about product formulation regulations, you should be able to get information about that. And so you say, yes, ma'am, I'll contact you, Crystal. Yes, Eddie. All right, someone asked, oh my God, excuse me, the clients come in with all types of oils. Yes, I know. It takes sometimes 2 to 3 visits to get it out. Yes, we have shown when I was with L'Oreal that there was a study about different types of oils, and depending upon the oil and the way that it penetrates, it actually can stay in the hair for a very long time, and you can use all kinds of solvents to try to get it out. And yes, it's very difficult to get out. So I understand what you're saying. You say they believe it or not, I've seen someone put Dawn dishwashing detergent on a new client's hair. Yeah, I understand. I was so afraid for her hair because she did not do, did not even do a consultation. Okay, the client could have had an allergic reaction. Even though 96% of my clients are virgin, I still use full relaxer systems for my shampoo finishes. Okay. Oh, full relaxer system. Yes, Dee. I know that you are an advocate for using the system within a product line, and I understand that. And that's, I want to be careful, but a lot of times you could deviate from that sometimes, but it is best to stay within the product line because that's the way that they tested it for their claims, if they have tested for claims. But if you're using a relaxer system, they definitely have to test for claims. So for what you're talking about, that is best. But yeah, a lot of people are not product or brand loyal when it comes to having a complete line of products within the same brand. And a lot of people mix and match, and we can debate that for a while, but I know, Dee Dee, you are an advocate for staying within that brand line. And I think for claims, especially with relaxers, that is the best. You say you wear it braided. Yeah, Eddie. Oh, so do you wear it braided without any extensions? I was under the impression that you had extensions, but yeah, if you wear it braided, the results that you can get from using your DIY can be advantageous for the style that you have. So that is something that needs to be considered. And then you say, just making it. Yeah, I see so many Facebook users without having any names attached. So it's unfortunate. Kimberly, I can see your name. You wouldn't mix and match personally for liability reasons. And that is also, which is why I said I need to be careful. But that's why I was like, I need to choose my words properly. But for the most part, like if you have a leave-in conditioner, that's a different name brand than another, and you like after you do your system of cleansing, you shouldn't have any problems with that because they need to be able to stand on their own as well. But this kind of leads me to another thing that I wanted to say about different products, and that is about shampoos. And so there was a study that was done in Brazil, and they tested 123 shampoos. And the only reason why I know that number is because it's 1, 2, 3. So 123 shampoos were tested, and they found that only 40% actually had an ideal pH, because our skin or scalp is around 5, pH of 5. And so usually you want to have a shampoo around that same pH, so between 4 and 6.5. Because the pH can change. And so they only found that 40% of the tested shampoos actually had the right pH. And so even though the study was done on Brazil, I'm pretty sure we would get about the same thing if we repeated that study here in the US. And so with everyone mixing their own products and doing all kinds of things, I'm not sure that people are really cognizant about how important it is to keep those things consistent with their formulation. So you have to be very careful and make sure that it's conducive to the health of the hair and the scalp. And so anytime you change the environment of the scalp, which includes changing the pH, then the microorganisms that are innate to your scalp, or we all have microorganisms everywhere. So, when people make a blanket statement about, oh, we got to remove bacteria from your scalp. No, there's some good bacteria. And sometimes if your scalp is not in this optimal state, there may be an imbalance and you may have some bad bacteria or microorganisms, period. But you want to make sure that you keep the environment conducive to it being that right balance for a healthy scalp. And so we're still doing research to understand that, but you have to keep that in mind. Let's see, I have hair added, in with your braids, yeah. And that makes a difference in terms of how your hair responds to the products. I use the DIY on my hair before braiding. I leave the braids in for about 2 weeks and use the DIY as a deep conditioner every 3 to 4 days, so that that's to build moisture and treat your dry scalp. And if it's braided 4 to 6 weeks, I do not shampoo it and oil the scalp. Oh, you oil it with jojoba oil and rosemary essential oil mixture. Yeah. So I'm curious as to whether or not, this concoction and your regimen is actually working for you. I would be curious as to how it's working and then what you have done in the past if it has not been working. But you and I can talk about that offline. But yeah, so you have to be careful about the pH. And so in the article that I was reading on elemental medium, when they were talking about is scalp the new skin, they suggest that you can buy on Amazon just some pH strips so that on your own, you can actually look and see if the pH is ideal. And once again, you need to have in mind that it needs to be between a pH of 4 to 6.5, so a little acidic. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, look at the time. Okay, I'm doing good with time here. I want to talk about new research because everybody's doing, things on their own and mixing and matching. And one of the things, so I'm going to backtrack and then come back to the new research. I see from Nadia Hughes. She is a good friend of mine and an awesome trichologist. She hasn't done it lately, but she used to always tag me when she would see videos where a lot of Black women would be on and they would be saturating their hair with a product. And she would be like, why are they putting all that on their hair? And so I have, mixed emotions about it, because as someone who has very curly hair that is hard to manage, I understand the use of using, copious amounts of product and saturating it just so that you can have some type of control. But at the same time, I know that when you do that, you have a tendency to, have some of that transfer onto your scalp, and that leads to the buildup that needs to be properly cleansed. So if you do that, I do not recommend a co-wash, which is using a conditioner to supposedly cleanse your hair, as opposed to having a real shampoo that will actually properly cleanse the scalp and the hair so that you can remove all the buildup. Because when you use a lot of products and it builds up, it actually can stop the hair from growing properly, but you have to cleanse it. So I say all that to say, be very careful when you do saturate and some of the product for your hair goes onto your scalp, because it won't be conducive to you actually having those open follicles that can make hair grow more effectively. I can be my case study. Yes, you can be my case study, and we'll reach out soon. That's cool. And Kimberly said, my curls are beautiful. Oh, thank you. Yeah, my twist out. Have a twist out, and it's just the easiest thing for me to do. And I have to go through like a process. I'll twist it, I'll leave it in twist, I'll pin it up, and then just to make it, last a little longer, I will just change up the look. So this is my last stage. After this, I may put it up in a puff cuff, and then I'll have to cleanse it so it doesn't keep its form for long, especially in the summer months. Okay, so why can't you see the other comments? You can't see the comments, Kimberly, because I'm on several platforms. So depending on what page you're looking from, so I'm on all my Facebook group pages. I am on YouTube. And so depending upon what page you're on, you may not see the comments. So that's why. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about new research, because that is really the motivation for me doing what I do and why I am collaborating with hair practitioners, because new research in the microbiome, and I'm happy to say that me, my research partner, and actually my daughter, we've done some research that has looked at the microbial environment of the scalp and how it may play a role in alopecia scalps, meaning scalps that have alopecia. And it was from people who self-proclaimed that they had hair loss. And what we found was that the microbial environment differed from those who had alopecia compared to those who did not. And so other research is showing that there is like this gut-brain axis, right? So meaning that what you put inside of your body can impact your brain, and then your brain controls, well, there are other systems in the body that also control what's going on with the body, but the brain is, what needs to, you have all these signals that have your body respond the way that it responds. And so it's like what goes on in the gut affects the brain. What goes in the brain can also affect your gut and other things that go on with the body. Also the skin. And so now if you look in the literature and you're looking at what's going on, they also have a gut brain skin axis, meaning that, it goes back and forth between what happens with the skin, what happens with the brain, what happens with the gut, and all of that interplays together and has an impact on your overall health. And so that's one of the reasons why we are wanting to do more research, because we know that we have just scratched the surface when it comes to understanding what is going on. And so new research is showing that all of these things are impactful. We just don't understand how it impacts. And so that's one of the reasons why I get together with serious and conscientious hair practitioners, and we do research together. And so I plan on not only doing the research, but disseminating the information, which is why I have this platform right now, so that it can be disseminated to you and that you can have information that you can trust. Jeanette is on here. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for saying hello. And so speaking of Jeanette, Jeanette is one of the hair practitioners who is serious and conscientious about making a difference. And so that's one of the things that is really needed. We are just scratching the surface right now in terms of the knowledge that we have, but there's so much more that we need. So it's important that we work together. And if you are interested in doing so, please contact me. And there is a link that you can click on to actually schedule an appointment. So in closing, if we don't have any other questions, I don't think I see any more. But one thing that I definitely wanted to do was just summarize everything that I've gone over so far. And so what has research revealed about the best ingredient for moisturizing the scalp? You should already know that that is glycerin. How to treat your scalp for the best outcomes. You want to make sure that you only treat it if there's a problem, and do it under the guidance of a hair practitioner, such as a dermatologist or a trichologist who knows their stuff. And so if you need help with that, you can contact me. Remember that you don't need a treatment if you don't have a problem, but as I explained not too long ago, consider the polymers and the waxes. When you saturate, it goes from the hair to the scalp, and you don't want that product buildup. So be conscientious about that. And then what do you need to consider before purchasing products? Consider if you have a problem, and if there is nothing wrong, consider yourself blessed. You don't need anything to keep it healthy because your body is functioning optimally. So, that is something that you should definitely keep in mind. What are you looking for in the product when it comes to your scalp care? And if you don't have, like I said, hair loss, if you don't have irritation and inflammation or dandruff, you're good. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. This was really fun. And I will be on next week. And I don't see any other questions. So thank you, because our Black hair matters. And as always, take care and love on hair. Bye-bye.